The following episode might contain sensitive content that you might not be comfortable listening to. This will include topics such as self-harm, suicide, alcoholism. If any of these things or anything related might disturb you, please proceed with caution or click off the video now. The duality in life is recognizing that you wouldn't understand what the good moments look like without the bad ones. Welcome back. My name is Hazy. Who Killed Hazy? Welcome back to another episode of the Only Rainy Days podcast. Today, again, I feel like I say this all the time, but as you might be able to tell from the title, I want this message to be, or this episode to be dedicated to my younger self, or at the very least, anyone that's younger than me. At time recording, today, or I guess relatively tonight, it is February 10th, and it is 5 a.m. And I want to talk to, I guess, several different levels of myself tonight, because I feel like I've gone through what I would call several iterations or evolutions of myself. And even though throughout each and every evolution, especially as I continue to get older, I thought I reached a point where I could recognize this is who I'll probably be for the rest of my life. To be constantly reminded about the fact that there's always going to be change in my life. There's always going to be, I guess, a different way that I perceive myself and a different way that I act. So I guess this first part will be to my youngest self. Let's go back to when I was about 6 years old. And I guess for context, because I don't really mind mentioning it. It doesn't really matter to me. But even though it doesn't bother me, I don't mind mentioning how old I am now. I think that it'll be helpful because this is something that I do want to continue doing. So I think it's good just for perspective. And I can look back on this and realize like, oh, maybe I'm bugging now as I continue to look back on this in the future. Currently, this day, February 10th, 2023, I am 19 years old. And I will turn 20 years old at some point during this year. I don't plan to mention when. But I want to talk to my 6-year-old self, because when I was younger, way younger, I mean, it might sound insane to people older than me, but 13 years ago, when I was 6 going on 7, it feels like a long time ago, long enough to the point where I don't have any memories of who I was when I was 6 years old, 6, 7. My first memory, I believe, is when I was 8 years old, but I know in between basically birth up until I was about 9 or 10, I didn't really experience anything, or I didn't experience anything that life, I don't want to say has to offer, but anything that life offers. And the difference between the two would be I didn't have a clear understanding of what grief felt like. I didn't understand negative emotions at all. From my understanding, somewhere between where I was 6 to 10 years old, I believe around the time I was 8 or 9, I lost my grandma on my mother's side. So my mother's mom, she died somewhere around that time to breast cancer, unfortunately. And I do miss her, but I lost her during that time. And even to this day, especially as I look back on it, I find it hard to feel emotion towards the event. I miss her. I still have memories of being in her house and making our family recipe. And I recall a very small amount of correspondence between me and her. I recall some conversations, and just being in her presence, I can tell you what she looks like. If you showed me a lineup, like, I know what she looks like, but I'm still too young to remember too many memories with her, and it's all vague, and it will continuously get vague. But even when I got the news that she passed, I think the exact words that I had when it happened, when I got news, was, "Wait, she's dead? Oh." And then I just went back into whatever I was doing, because I didn't understand what death really meant. And I mean, I'm definitely aware of that. In some circumstances, I'm quite fortunate to not fully understand what death means as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, maybe 9, maybe even 10. But at the same time, even though I'm fortunate to not understand it, I guess it's polarizing in a sense, or at least I don't think polarizing is the right word, but it brings an emotion, because the fact that I didn't feel anything when the event occurred, it makes it even hard to feel anything now. Like, now I can look back and I can say I miss her, but it's only missing her in the sense that I don't understand necessarily what I missed or what I would have missed had she still be in my presence. And the time that I spent when I was that young, I didn't really spend it that well with her. Can I really blame myself for it? No, I don't think I can. You don't know what you don't know. So, when I was younger, I can't expect myself to try to spend every moment that I had in her presence to the fullest, because that death wasn't a thought to me at the time. And in a similar sense, even if death wasn't a thought, I just didn't understand the fact that every moment counts when it comes to being with somebody, whether it just be friends or relatives or anything. It doesn't matter how young or old that you are. It just wasn't a thought. So whenever I would go to visit her, I was too busy just trying to experience things. I didn't really understand the fact that, like, at any given moment, life can just snatch any and everybody that you might love away from you. It wasn't a thing, so I didn't understand it. But my message to my younger self, I guess, in that sense, in terms of 6 to 10 years old, would be, I wish I had a better understanding of what life would have thrown at me after those years. And even though now, with my age, and I'm sure I'll understand it the more that I grow up, I understand that that's quite the death wish that I'm trying to impose on myself here, because I would believe any person would say, why would you wish such a thing on someone so young? To be young and innocent is quite a dream to a lot of people. And even to those that didn't have the fortune or the opportunity to grow up oblivious to the scenarios around them, everything around it is just like, why would you wish for that? But I think I grew up with too much in terms of how I viewed the world and how I just condoned myself. And I can only say that now because, looking back on it, there was a handful of events between the ages of 6 and 10 where either I made mistakes because I couldn't understand fully the consequences of my actions, or I would not understand the full scope of the things that I saw, and I grew up oblivious basically to what happened, and it's all now starting to bite me. And for the better or for the worse, I mean, I can't be the person to tell you, and quite honestly, no one can really answer that question for me. I don't know if growing up oblivious to the things that I saw growing up is for the better or for the worse, but part of me believes that I wish that I understood what was going on, because it would have molded me into a different person, whether it be more resilient or more I can't figure out the word, but to be more targeted by what happened, basically. I don't know if it's for better or for worse, but I'm not fully comfortable with the way that I was able to completely ignore anything that happened when I was younger. And I can think of a lot of things. Or a handful of events that happened when I was younger that I just managed to shake off completely as if it never happened. And there's some events that have been completely blocked out of my memory, or I wasn't even aware of, that I've only have come to be slightly aware of. And I have to deal with recognizing that some of the events and consequences and things that I have seen in recent years happened when I was 6, 7, 8, and I had no clue, or my brain has completely shut it out. Just being aware of it now brings a level of grief to me, and I don't fully understand why, if I'm going to be completely honest. I don't understand why events that I was priorly unaware of brings me such negative emotions to understand and hear about, 10 to 13 years in the future. But something about that entire circumstance doesn't make me feel good, doesn't make me feel well. I wish I had more awareness of as a child, because I believe the lack of awareness is what makes me feel, quote unquote, exceptionally vulnerable to things that are happening to me now, or at least things that happened to me recently. I believe I talked about this in another episode. I believe the first episode. But I didn't really get the full, shock of everything that was going on in my life up until I was about 12 or 13. I believe that's when everything started to hit for me. That's when I understood that everything wasn't roses and blossoms, and everything wasn't pink, and everything was just beautiful. That's when I fully understood, in terms of emotional scale, there is bad that is happening around me. There is bad that I'm doing, and I really need to confront it. And the lack of that understanding prior to being midway through middle school at that point left me very vulnerable to crumbling, because it all hit me like a tsunami, basically. All the events that I could recall from that point and before all hit me at once, and in addition to the things that were happening at the time, I completely folded under pressure. And in the same sense of saying that I folded under pressure, I'm completely lucky and I'm completely happy. Or, I don't want to use the word happy, but I know that I'm fortunate to still be here. through whatever circumstance, and I'm trying my best to do what I can with the fact that I'm still here. But everything that did hit me at that time, when I finally, quote unquote, woke up to the reality that I'm living in, it could have been less harmful if at any point prior I would have had an understanding. And I wish that's something that my 6-year-old self could have understood at the time, that not everything was just beautiful. Not everything is to be shrugged off. Not everything is to be ignored. Try something, at the very least, acknowledge what's happening, because I didn't do anything with that. But with all that said and aside, the main, I guess, quote unquote, meat and bones of who I want to talk to, in this sense, in this context of trying to send a message to my younger self. Oh, I got that wrong. I got that completely wrong. In middle school, I was 11. I was about 11 when everything started to hit, 11 or 12. Because when I hit high school, and I skipped a grade. Not a brag, I don't really care about it, but I did skip a grade. So I hit high school when I was 13. Between the last year of middle school, so 12 years old, and about junior year of high school, so 12 to 15, that is probably the strongest demographic of age when it comes to myself that I really want to speak to. Because there's no reason to try to hide everything that I'm thinking and saying behind smoke and mirrors. That was quite honestly, the worst period of my life. And I don't think and I hope to God that nothing could rival that time period. Because between 12 and 15, especially 12 and 14, that was terrible years for me, quite honestly. They were terrible years in terms of everything that was going on actively, and finally becoming aware of my surroundings and the things that have happened in my life. In addition to other things, such as still trying to do, extracurriculars and sports and whatever, just trying to keep my life going forward, not only going forward, but trying to elevate my life in the midst of a mental crisis and crises that were happening as well around it, made those years very unenjoyable. And to be 100% blatantly obvious, or blatantly honest, I was suicidal during those years. And to be transparent, in terms of a general definition of what suicidal means, I still am suicidal, but the tendencies and the feelings that I have now are more so from a disinterest in life caused by a lack of direction. And the lack of direction still stems from how suicidal I felt when I was between the ages of 13 and 14, because I just felt like life was worthless, because that's what I understood. That's the only takeaway, the only honest and true takeaway that I took from being 13 and 14, the things that I felt and experienced beforehand, the things I was feeling at the time, and the way that I perceived the future. It was quite honestly, it was nihilistic. It was a nihilistic standpoint on life. I saw my previous time alive as nothing but suffering. I saw what I was going through as nothing but suffering. And from that, I just inferred that the things that I would see going on was going to be only suffering. And it made it very hard to see, made it very hard to think. I spent my freshman year of high school, when I was 13 years old, I spent it doing okay. I was doing well in the things that I understood, did bad in the things that I didn't understand, and I just didn't care. I was just kind of going with the wind. Had some fun with extracurriculars and things, but to be 100, a lot of the things that I did freshman year and things, because I understood that school was still relatively easy for me at the time, a lot of things that I did during that time period was more to be away from whatever I felt like or whatever was going on at the time. Cliche statement or not, I don't think it's cliche at all, but I'm gonna cover it just in case. It was my escape, whatever I could do to just spend more time at school or just anything to stay out of the house, because I didn't feel like anything in the house really, it didn't offer me anything. It just always felt like it took. So my freshman year of high school, I was in tennis. I considered golf, but I considered it too late. It was basically out of season. I stopped caring, but I did golf. I did chess, and even if it wasn't either of the two, I have memories of just walking home, which isn't like, like a crazy thing, but I would purposely skip the bus so I would have a reason to walk home, just so I could just stay away for a moment, give me time to think. When I was at golf, I would think. When I was playing chess for the chess team, I would think. I did scholastic bowl too, and math club. I didn't do scholastic. I did it once, but I was more into math club. During math club, I would think, and I was into all these things because I just wouldn't be home. I wouldn't be home until 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. It didn't matter what time it was, as long as I just could have the time, quote unquote, alone, or just around something that brought me joy of whatever sense. It made me happy. And eventually I started to correlate these actions with happiness, and as a result I went further into my abyss, because if there was any point where I couldn't receive it and I was stuck at home, I just saw home as this bad place to be. So if I was there, I would just continuously spiral, and that spiraling left me in a very peculiar state, or at the very least very violent space. I didn't have, but the problem with it being a violent space, or it's a positive in some sorts, because I'm happy that it take out that violence, at least at the time, on other people. The violence just became self-centered, because it went from, this was the thought process and thought pipeline that I went down that royally ruined who I am as a person, and the things that I'm trying to reverse now, 5-6 years to the future. I would deal with something that was unpleasant at home, something that happened in the past that my mind has finally uncovered, anything of the sort. I would take it in, and instead of trying to figure out what it was for itself, I would try to see, what did I do wrong, or what could I have done to fix it, even if the things that I came up with were completely hypothetical and impossible to actually do in the real life. Anything that I could do to try to, quote unquote, make sense of the scenario, put light onto it, I tried. So created a very warped sense of myself. I started to see myself as a problem. I started to see myself as this bad person because I wasn't able to stop these things that I didn't like from cultivating and happening in the first place. I felt like it was all in my hands, basically. If I couldn't fix it, it couldn't be fixed. A terrible way to think. And that sort of, I guess, it is a form of narcissism, basically. That narcissism, that hell of myself, turned into nothing that could be considered less than self-hatred. I started to hate myself. And then during the same time, I was trying to find any way to either avoid that eventual outcome or to try to minimize the impact that it had on my life, which led me down a path of substance. I don't want to say substance abuse because I don't think I abused it too much during that time, but it turned me towards substance abuse, and it turned me into someone that didn't care, for better or for worse. Some cases definitely for better, for some cases definitely for worse, because I would like to believe, at the very least, from my memory, I used to be a very nice person. I used to be a nice person, a caring person. I used to be very in tune with my emotions and the emotions that others might feel. I tried my best to accommodate any and everyone that I would encounter in anything of the such. And if it ever felt any way outside of it, it might have just been a joke, in which even then the joke, I would try to make sure it didn't land, because I didn't want that to ever be an image for myself. I used to be, in terms of, I guess, a chronically online term, I used to be normal. I used to just seem like a kid that would go on to an IRC. An IRC is basically a chat board. It's similar to just like Discord text channels. I would just be in IRC or I'd be in Discord, and I would just try my best to just relax with people and relax with myself. And it turned into just a form of hatred, turned to a destructive form of hatred, because I couldn't deal with it. And I couldn't deal with it, quote unquote, fast enough. It just all felt terrible. It all felt bad. And I felt worthless. I felt completely worthless. What did I bring to the table? I was this gifted kid that quit everything around me because of the pressure, or because I didn't want to rise to the occasion. What can I do for anybody at that point? I felt terrible about myself, and I fell into a deeper depression because my own mind started to turn against me. It didn't matter about the fact that the things that have happened and the things that I feared to happen at some point in the future were happening or wasn't happening. It all just felt like it came down to me, and it all just felt like if I made a different move, maybe something would change. And it led me into a very dark path. But I say everything because if there's any message I can give myself from 3, 4, 5, even 6 years into the present, it gets better. It gets better, because that is one of the main things that made me struggle when I was younger. I didn't believe that it could get better at all. I sat in my bubble, and I believed that that was what life looked like. I didn't see, quote unquote, healthy relationship standards for a while. I didn't see, or at the very least, I didn't feel legitimate support for things that I was trying to pursue in my own endeavors and everything. I was completely lost, shrouded out, lost in self-hatred and doubt and everything negative. And I wish I got out of it sooner, because I would have found some of the things that I found only when I started to challenge the way that I feel, what I would consider late. I didn't know that I wanted to go into art or any form of digital design or visual media prior to breaking myself. And I broke myself very hard. I broke myself to the point where I ended up having to be removed from my high school for a month to go to therapy and go see a psychiatrist and get a signed letter saying that we believe Hazy is finally back in a state that would be sufficient enough to attend our academy again. I've seen a lot, or I haven't seen a lot necessarily, but I've seen enough to understand that I used to be in a very, very dark place. It was terrible, quite honestly. This is a terrible place to be. But I wish that I had hope. I wish I had even a fraction of the hope that I have nowadays, even though I still feel terrible. I still feel worthless. And I wake up every morning believing that I should disappear in some sense, whether it just be for the sake of disinterest in life itself or to try to create benefit for someone around me. I still struggle with the fact that I still hate portions of myself, but I don't hate every single part of me the way that I did when I was 13 and 14. And I truly wish that younger me had more love for the person that I am today, or wish that my younger self had a stronger sense of love for the person I was at the time, because I believe in terms of positive emotions, I never changed. I never changed in terms of my popular emotions. Sure, definitely. They died out. They became weaker. But in terms of the intensity I had for the people that stayed around me and the people that tried to do their best to stay with me and keep up with me and try to make sure that my head was afloat, I forever love them for it, because they kept me grounded. And the reason that I was grounded is the reason why I was able to find my footing in the first place. And being able to find my footing was the only reason why I've been able to improve at all in these last couple of years. And it's a beautiful thing, and I can never thank them for it. But I needed my younger self to understand that there are people that are willing to help them. You don't have to go to extremities if you don't want to. If I could talk to my younger self, I'd tell him it gets better. It gets better regardless of how I feel about the scenarios that are going on, regardless of the scenarios that have happened in between me getting pulled out of school and having to be forced to see a therapist / psychiatrist. I saw both. Despite everything that I've seen before seeing my therapist, after I see my therapist and I don't see them anymore, despite all the feelings that I felt at the time, abusing drugs and substances and trying to find friends and people who weren't my friends, and trying to find friends and anything that would try to quickly, quote unquote quickly, alter my appearance, anything like that. Everything didn't work. But the one thing that did work was being aware. I started to adjust the way that I approached life. I started to take the time that I needed every single day until it got better. I took the time to get out of my room and get out of my regular space and do anything. I would walk around the school. I would walk to a friend's place, and I would try to strike up conversation with whatever they were doing. And it felt like an escape. It definitely was in some sense. But at the same time, those reasons and the things that I did were not only to fill the void, but they also provided me with a sense of feeling and a sense of trust and a sense of accomplishment, and realizing that there are some people in this world who aren't just here to just put you down like a dog. I'm doing well, or at the very least, I'm doing well in comparison, and I'm doing well to try to fix all the things that I feel like I've done wrong in my time, in my life. And I just wish my younger self could understand that. I wish my younger self could understand that despite all the mistakes, despite all the fuck ups that you might have, despite all the feelings you have to just throw your body into the wind, or throw your rank games into the wind, anything like that. Whatever I was interested in at the time, whatever I was interested in now, whatever I might be interested in the future, it all matters to be invested, and it all matters to just know when to call it quits, basically. Knowing that limit where I really need to go see a therapist. I had a counselor for months prior to having a therapist and a psychiatrist, but when I said how I really felt one night or one evening, that's when everything crumbled. That's when everyone understood where I was. That's when I didn't feel like I needed to hide. But I don't want you to hide either. I don't want hiding to be something that becomes preferable by any means. Hiding away from from your problems and how you feel, anything like that, it will only make you feel worse. It will only make you feel less of a person going into the future. And it's not to say that decision that you made at the moment was necessarily bad, but it's not the decision that you should have made at the time. Or maybe you should have never made it. But having the understanding as early as possible is something that can give you an edge over your peers and anything of such. And that edge, you need every single portion of it that you can get. And I wish I understood that. I wish I understood the consequences of my actions. I'm looking at my left arm right now. Minimal light. I'm not having a lot of light. I can still see the scars, the self-harm scars that I have during that time period when I was 12, 13, 14. I have memories of stealing alcohol and still indulging in other forms of physical self-harm when I was 12 years old because I couldn't understand anything. My mind was clouded and I didn't have a source to think about it or try to deal with it. I didn't know who I could turn to, any resources I could turn to. I didn't understand definitions, nothing. I understood nothing. It all hit me like a ton of bricks at a random point of my life, and there was nothing that I could really do about the fact that I felt worthless. But I found my purpose. I realized that there's a purpose between purpose and fulfillment. I started to do my research. I started to understand how I was feeling. I did my best to reverse the way that I feel and the way that I have ever felt. And it worked. It worked. I was able to alter who I was. I was able to alter my responses to things that have happened. I was able to change everything into a sense. I was able to change everything into a different bullet points and just understand everything for what it was, face value, and just become a better person. But I would have never gotten there if I didn't just start to confront the way that I feel, and I wouldn't have gotten there if I wasn't self-aware. And those are things that I wish that I had when I was younger. I wish I was self-aware to both the consequences that I might be able to face when I get older, or the consequences that others might face. But at the same time, I just wanted to be better in every aspect possible. It goes back to just being able to know, or being able to just go to space, whatever. I always enjoyed being that guy that could do a lot of things, and being that guy that could score if needed. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to feel independent, but at the same time to feel dependent, and understanding which one is for you, because being dependent, being independent are two different type of character types, and I don't want to really get into it, but understanding who you are, what makes you feel good, how can I continue this habit, it's amazing. But overall, I really do wish that I could talk to my younger self and tell him to stick in there before the therapy, before anything. I really wish that I would have had the strength to get through it, because I've seen, how do I put this? I don't believe that a lot of the grief, majority of the grief that I feel from actions and events that happened during that time period was purely because of the way that I feel. I believe that the way that I feel is accelerated or enhanced by the things that I feel like I missed out on when I was younger. Because I say everything, I still, by the time that everything hit, I lost everything, basically. And I didn't know where to start, where to go. Everything was fucked. Everything was fucked, for a lack of better words. And I started to just drift, and I started to make bad decisions, and just anything I could to try to get the attention that I wanted, or to get literally whatever I needed. The reason why that I have dreads to this day, the reason why my hair is so long, I started to grow my hair out freshman year of high school, when I was 13, 2016 to be exact. I grew my hair out because the scenario that I started ending up in meant that I couldn't even feel secure in the fact that I could get a haircut in the first place. Good or not, didn't matter. I didn't feel comfortable asking for a haircut, and I just didn't do anything with it. And I basically forfeited everything that I felt and everything along the line. Having the afro, having the long hair made me feel like I had control. Having the long hair and the dreads and everything that I have now, it feels amazing because I feel like I finally have control of my life. And it's something I definitely had during that time period, but I did not do my best with what I had at my disposal. And it sucks. It sucks to realize that you have made a lot of mistakes on your road to becoming a better person or anything as such, and to consistently fail feels terrible. At the same time, I would never be the same person. I would never be anything without recognizing my mistakes, especially my mistakes come from over aggression or anything of the such. If everyone is trying and I'm not, I'm the weak link, and because I'm the weak link, I want to get turned out and pushed out. And it's all terrible. It's all terrible. So, to sum everything up, to my youngest self, my childhood self, I wish you grew up faster, but I don't blame you for not growing up faster, and I'm jealous of you. To my boyfriend, to my ex-boyfriend, to any and everyone that has known me for a while, since I was 13, between the ages of 13 and 16, to my younger self, I wish that you had the same amount of hope for the future that I have now. Because even though I'm still at a loss, even though I feel like I'm lost, my future feels desolate or confused at times, I get angry at everything that I've been feeling for so long in my life, and it feels like I still might not ever truly fully escape it. I wish that you just try your best to hold on and keep holding on, because even though these last couple years, especially those years between being 14, being 15, being 16, you saw some events, you saw a lot of things, you lost friends, you saw friends become on the brink of losing their own lives in front of you, you saw their mental health decline and everything around it. Even despite everything that you saw during that time period, especially how it feels so young in relative to what you hear towards the people around you and you hear in your own life, because it's not like everything is going perfectly now. I wish that you continuously hold on, because despite everything that happened during that time when you were 13, 14, when you are 13, 14, and the things that you feel now and things that you have felt last year, and anything towards it in between us, even though it's not in between us because we're the same, I really do wish that you learn how to hold on even harder, because it doesn't matter if anything is perfect or not. There is no such thing as perfect, and we understand that. There is no perfect scenario. But it does get better. It does get better. It 100% gets better. Because, maybe this will be a time capsule from my 19-year-old self, and I can always revisit this whenever I want to. In comparison to where I was when I was 13, 14 to where I am now as a 19, 20-year-old, it has gotten better. It's not perfect by any means, but I'm alive. I'm alive. I don't wake up with the same excruciating existential dread and this overbearing feeling of wanting to just kill myself and get it all over with. The misery that I felt when I was that age, it's not there, or it's not as strong. It's not remotely close to it. I can wake up and try to figure out exactly where do I want to be in the future, as opposed to figuring out will I make it through tonight. There's no longer those nights of desperation and waking up to self-harm to try to force a smile on my face anymore. Those days are gone. I'm able to eat 2-3 meals a day. I'm able to consume enough water. I'm able to do a lot more now in the flesh today than I was 5-6 years ago when I was in your shoes as a 13, 14-year-old. And none of this would have been possible if you didn't take the time to ask for help when you feel like you finally hit rock bottom and you felt like you couldn't do it anymore. And I'm so happy that you did. I'm so happy that you were able to ask for help regardless of how long it took, because none of this would have been possible if you didn't. But I wish that you were able to ask for help when you were younger, because there's always been that understanding that help has been needed, and you rejected the help because you just wanted the misery to be over, and you underplayed the value that other people could bring towards your life in trying to get that misery to end. And you only saw it when life started to flash in front of your eyes for the second time. And I wish that it came faster, because if it came faster, things might have been even better than where it is now. So I'm happy and I'm proud of 13, 14-year-old me for figuring out that lesson. But I truly wish that it could have came faster, because it could have been avoided. There are too many cuts on my arms. There are too many scars and lingering thoughts around my neck. There are too many things that have been felt that didn't need to be felt if I just understood more when I was younger. There's a lot of things, and it's still not beautiful and still not perfect. And quite honestly, if I didn't experience those things when I was younger, I was bound to experience it anyway. The main reason why I don't resort back to those tactics and I don't resort back to this terrible habitual habit of self-harm or anything like that is simply because I don't want to go through that dark period of my life again. I don't want to. And I still see it in the people around me, and I understand why, but I just wish that there was anything I could do about it. And I just wish that it didn't have to be this way. But and it's terrible to just chalk it up to that's just how life is. But there's just something. There's an answer. There is an answer, and it's individual. But as long as I continuously spend the time to figure it out, I can continuously reduce how much I see, and I can continuously reduce the urges that I feel. Because it's a journey. It's a journey in itself. It's a journey to get better. It's a journey to understand what you didn't understand when you were younger. And it's a journey to actually take those lessons that you will want to give yourself when you were younger and actually apply it to yourself in the modern day. February 10th, 2023. Time of recording, 5 a.m., almost 6 a.m. I am fortunate enough, I am happy to be able to celebrate that this is my 5-year anniversary of being alive. On February 1st, 2023, to my 14-year-old self, I am able to sit here and celebrate the fact that I am still alive because on February 1st, 2018, you woke up at 7 a.m., you grabbed your pocket knife, and you made 20 to 30 cuts in random orientations on your arm, and you went through your day 6, 7, 8 a.m., and within 6, 7 hours, you ended up in your counselor's office, and you told your counselor right before that session ended and you went to your final class of that day that you were going to kill yourself that night because you had enough with the grief that you felt and the way that you couldn't bring a smile to your face without self-harming, and that you just felt worthless, and you felt like you didn't have any direction in your life. You felt terrible in all aspects. And I'm happy to say that 5 years later, after that terrible day, February 1st, 2018, you're here. You are here. You are alive. You are figuring out a direction for yourself in life. You are gaining skills. You have found things that you are passionate about, and you're passionate enough about it to ignore any sort of existential dread that you feel about the uncertainty that life will inevitably bring you. You are willing to look the unknown in its eye and continue to walk forward. And it's a beautiful thing. You have reminders of the things that you have felt when you were younger, and the things that you felt at the time, 14-year-old me. You can see it to this day, and I might need to take a better light to see it, but you see the scars. You know what you've seen in both just yourself, and you know what you've seen in the people around you, even when you tried to be better finally and feeling discouraged because you will see the people around you still struggling or just struggling, and you were too busy. I don't want to say you were too busy, but you were stuck in your own head to not understand and see what other people were dealing with, and finally seeing what other people dealt with and what they're dealing with started to discourage you from a path of improvement. You stuck to your guns. You understood that there is a way out, and you have found it. You have found it. You've found some type of opening for yourself to get there. So, with all that being said, even though technically I'm talking to my present self, with every word that I speak, I will forever be talking to my younger self. So, to younger me, February 10th, 2023, to my 19-year-old self, you have found a path. You have found what you consider your purpose. You have found the beginning of what you will consider fulfillment to your life. And you need to understand that any deviation from what you see as fulfillment to your life will forever be your downfall, because you spent the beginning of your life chasing things because you were told to, or just because of any outside external factor, instead of understanding and truly searching for what made you happy and what makes you whole. And that's the only thing that matters in life. You need to understand and continuously understand, continuously pursue the things that make you feel fulfilled in life. And with that, that is what I would tell younger me.